Welcome back to our Vegas October 1 sounds. Tonight I'm going to do a relatively short video, and I want to establish the concept of what constitutes a harmonic sound. Gunshots are not harmonic in nature, they're percussive in nature. That is, the sound associated with the gunshot is short in duration, it's typically broadband, and the frequency allocations depend upon what type of gunshot sound you're hearing, be it the muzzle blast or the supersonic crack. And even within those two types, there's variations, pretty big variations. So I want to talk about just the opposite so that it's clear in future videos what I'm referring to. In this case, I'm going to look at some music produced by a group known as Pentatonix, and they're a cappella group consisting of 5 voices, various frequency range, and tonal inclination. I happen to really enjoy their music. Some of it even, can bring on very strong emotional feelings. But being that it's singing, it consists mostly of harmonic sounds, that is, sounds which are long in duration, relatively stable frequency with minor variations. Now that's not to say that the music is entirely harmonic. In fact, there are percussive sounds. Every time the beatbox fellow does a little sound, that simulates a drum or something, it can have percussive components to it. And in fact, regular speech can have percussive components to it. But when you're singing, the percussive parts from the voice tend to be relatively subdued. So if you take that, download it, and open it up in Sonic Visualizer, and this is my standard 3-panel setup: power on the top, frequencies on the middle, and then the waveform on the bottom, which for the most part we can probably get away with in it. So anyway, we'll listen to a small piece of this to start with, in which we have let's get rid of this down there. I don't want to look at it much, and I want to make the power and the frequencies bigger. And we'll see that this is clearly a studio grade produced recording, in that it goes all the way up past 10,000 hertz, and it has components even everywhere in the power spectrum. So if we listen to it, and you can see that without even listening to it, that down here somewhere near 175 hertz there's some singing going on, and then up here are the changes that produce the actual words, shall we say. So anyway, let's listen to a brief portion of it.
There was a secret chord that David played.
Now, then you'll see right along here that there's a change coming, and you'll see that there's more intensity in the lower registers, and that there's actually a different note there and different notes there. So let's listen to that.
And it pleased the Lord, but you don't.
Let's see, there's other people coming in, and then coming up there's change there, and then there'll be a big change where they add in some low frequency.
Like,
and so by now you've got a big, deep, full, rich area down here below 400 hertz. And Sonic Visualizer is kind enough to tell you on the left hand side over here with this tool on exactly what key and frequency it is. But as you can see, these sounds tend to move left to right in long horizontal patterns. And in fact, if we go much further in to certain segments of this song, this is Hallelujah. There you can see something that's repeated over and over and over. Let's find one that has, here we go, this is a good example. For example, right in here, you see that there's these long stretches of, relatively long, so we'll listen to them, where it's a single, well, 2 voices, and the bass drops out a little bit. So that's where they're holding the tone. So that's what we call a harmonic signal. And gunshots aren't harmonic in nature, they're percussive. Let's see if we can find a percussive sound. Here's one that kind of looks percussive, but probably isn't truly percussive right there. And this, if we expand out here, you see that in reality it's not very percussive at all. It has a duration of 66 milliseconds, which for gunshot activity is an eternity. So let's see if we can't find a truly percussive sound. Now there's one right there. Now in this case, you see that the sound lasted approximately 17 milliseconds, which is still in gunshot activity about 5 times longer than the duration of a gunshot. But we have the bin size set at 1024, so if we drop that down to 128, we can see more precisely what the timing of them is, and then you can see that they are in fact much shorter, in this case 2.3, and that would qualify as a percussive sound in that it's a short duration sound, and in this case has a very specific frequency range. Which is centered around theoretically 3000 hertz, and we can verify that by going back up to 1000 and looking at the frequency. Yep, right around 3002 hertz. Okay, so anyway, that's the general nature and difference between percussive and harmonic. There's just a ton of other things to talk about in terms of music in here. This is such a beautiful song, and they have such beautiful voices that these patterns are so regular and so clean, and the quality of the recording is great, that I'm always amazed as when I look at their music, how full it is. And that's what makes great music, is the fullness of it. The harmonics, the overtones, all frequencies used. So anyway, that's the difference between harmonic and percussive. I'll be talking about that a lot in the very near future, and we'll grab you in the next one.